Screaming Skull. At the old prison, Moyes Hall, which is now a museum, a frightful screaming skull kept appearing in the days gone by. No one knows why. Legend has it the skull of William Corder, infamous for the Red Barn murder of Maria Martin, was stored in the prison. It was thought to be possessed by evil, and a number of sounds and spectral figures were seen around it. A book bound in his skin is on display in the museum, along with his tanned scalp, giving rise to tales that Corder's hair grew mysteriously after his death. The story of his capture for the murder has a certain spooky feel to it. Maria Martin, 26-year-old daughter of mole catcher Thomas Martin, said farewell to her young son, her sister and her stepmother, and then set out to meet William Corder, her 24-year-old lover, in the Red Barn. At his request, she went dressed as a man. Her family never saw or heard from her again. At the time of her disappearance, her family were worried. Her boyfriend Corder's explanations were vague, unsatisfactory, or improbable. He told them that she was well, that she was staying with Miss Rowland in Yarmouth. On October 18, 1827, he sent a letter to Maria's father, saying that they were man and wife. He told the family that Maria was staying in Newport, Isle of Wight, and expressed surprise that they had not answered Maria's letter describing the marriage. Trying to cover his tracks, he suggested that Mr. Martin take down the address for a reply and then burn the letters. Maria's stepmother dreamt of Maria twice, once before and once after Christmas. She had dreamt that Maria was murdered and buried in Red Barn in Polstead. She had not wanted to tell her husband because he would have thought her superstitious, but at last she had asked her husband to search the Red Barn. For some time he did nothing, but at last gave in to her nagging. With a friend he went to the barn, and upon prodding the floor with his mole spud, he found a soft spot. He dug out some 18 inches 15 centimetres of loose earth and discovered a body stuffed into a sack. A green silk handkerchief showed through. Mr. Martin recognised it as belonging to Corder, which Maria had been wearing when she left the house. Shortly afterwards, William Corder was arrested in London. He was taken to Polstead for the inquest and sent to Bury St Edmunds to stand trial. By the time he was being tried, plays are being performed. In terms of Victorian melodrama, he had become the moustache-twiddling bad guy, with Maria being the rosy-cheeked innocent. The story was such a big media sensation that when he was brought back to Suffolk, he was not allowed to stay in the local prison as crowds were gathering. He apparently spent a farcical night handcuffed to the officer in the local pub in the same bed. At the trial, he was found guilty on 11 points of murder, including shooting, strangling, stabbing and burying Maria alive.
Guilty. You are sentenced to death by hanging.
Her head was brought into the court as evidence. It was thought later that surgeons probably damaged her body during the autopsy. However, Corder was blamed for all of this. He was sentenced to death by hanging outside Moyes Hall, drawing an audience of 10,000 people. His body was to be anatomised, dissected. The skeleton was kept, and the scalp and part of skin were preserved. The surgeon, George Creed, later had an account of the trial bound in leather made by Corder's skin.